Hello and welcome to our November 2015 Out and Equal Monthly Town Call. My name is Daniel Lawrence Smith, Associate Director of Training, and our subject this month will be transgender topics, talking about Transgender Day of Remembrance, and then also reviewing our new transition guidelines. Just some housekeeping. This is a broadcast audio call, so please turn up the speakers or headsets on your computer. If you have any problems, feel free to chat those in and we'll try to assist you with that. And we're interested in your feedback throughout the call. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat those in and we will dedicate some time at the end for questions and answers. Some announcements here at Out and Equal. A reminder that our December town call will be on December 17th and we will be discussing health issues in the workplace. In January and February, we will kick off our virtual summit series, 6 of the very best and highest rated workshops from the 2015 Out and Equal Workplace Summit. We'll have our January monthly town call on the 25th, and if you have any subjects you would like us to cover at that time, feel free to chat those in. February 4th, 11th, and 18th, we will present our 3-part Building Bridges series, our core cultural competency and key concept training. In February, we will have our official kickoff to the 2016 Out and Equal Workplace Summit. March 23rd through 25th will be our executive forum for LGBT executives and emerging leaders, and that's going to be held at the Palace Hotel right here in San Francisco, California. And then that culminates with Momentum, Out and Equal's annual leadership celebration and gala dinner, also at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco. And we hope that each and every one of you can join us for the 2016 Out and Equal Workplace Summit in Orlando, Florida. And this year our Leadership Day will be on Tuesday, October 4th. We have a fantastic group of panelists joining us today, and I'd like to give them a moment to each introduce themselves, starting with Lori Fox.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Fox, and I have a consulting business that really focuses on LGBT inclusion, and in particular with transgender inclusion in the workplace. And I also serve as an Out and Equal board member, and I live in the Chicago area.
Thank you, Lori. And next, Jenna Cook.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, my name is Jenna Cook. I am a manager of regulatory medical writing. I work for Johnson & Johnson, based in Raritan, New Jersey. I've been with the company about 10 years, and I transitioned on the job there about 4 years ago. It was wonderful, no complaints, incredible company. And I've also been a member of the Transgender Advisory Committee now for, I think, about two and a half years.
Thank you, Jenna. And Deborah.
So, hi, I'm Deborah Drew. I'm the President and CEO of Drew Quality Group. We are actually a 501c3 charity as a biopharmaceutical generic drug manufacturing company addressing drug shortage and drug pricing. I'm also the chair of the Transgender Advisory. And I transitioned on the job probably about 7 years ago, and have worked with employee networks and those types of speaking and lecturing on unconscious bias in the.
Thank you, Deborah. And then on the call with us today as my co-moderator and partner in crime is Pat Bailey. Pat, do you want to say a few words?
Certainly. This is Pat Bailey. Thanks very much for joining us today on our November call. We've got some exciting information to look at today, and I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you. And so that's who we are, but we want to get a little bit of a pulse as to who is on the call. So we have some polls here, and these are interactive, and we'll be able to see your answers in live time. So our first question is, what is your role within your company? And go ahead and select what the right choice is for you. If you don't see your choice there, please feel free to chat in if it's something else, and then go ahead and hit submit, and we'll be able to see who is on the call with us today? Great. And we're seeing the spectrum run all over. So lots of executives, lots of LGBT employees, and ERG, BRG members. So thank you for that. And I'm also seeing faculty come in the chat box, employee services managers. So thank you all for that. And our next question is, we'd like to get a pulse of gender identity. So here we're asking, what is your gender identity? And we define that as innate, deeply felt psychological identification of gender which may or may not correspond to your designated sex at birth. So if you're comfortable answering this question, please feel free to go ahead, put that in, and hit submit. And again, if you don't see your gender identity reflected, please feel free to chat that in as well. Okay, and again, we're seeing that we have a very diverse crowd with us today, both cis male and female, and transgender female and transgender male, and then also the gender diverse population, so thank you for that. I'm seeing chatted in non-binary. Great, thank you. So today we're honoring International Transgender Day of Remembrance. And Transgender Day of Remembrance is a time to remember those in the transgender community who have died as a result of violence against them based on their gender identity. Transgender Day of Remembrance is held in November to honor Rita Hester, whose murder on November 28, 1998, launched the Remembering Our Dead web project and the San Francisco Vigil the following year. On the Transgender Day of Remembrance website, there are 73 individuals who are reported as having been murdered this year. Those represent just 5 countries, the United States, Brazil, Guyana, Cuba, and Spain. But as we know, that number is significantly higher, and this is what's reported. Okay, in addition to transgender people lost to violence, we've lost countless transgender people to suicide. The fact is that 41% of transgender people who responded to surveys have attempted suicide, and that compares to 1.6% of the general population. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat Bailey.
Thanks. And Daniel has already mentioned some of the facts and information about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and that the memorial was started with Gwendolyn Ann Smith and remembering Rita. And if we look at the numbers that are reported include domestic violence and suspicious deaths, but doesn't include suicides across trans and gender diverse people. And the Idaho group created some numbers and have been tracking since 2008 about how many people have lost their lives for being transgender or gender diverse. And what you see here is a compilation of those numbers. 1,731 have been reported killed over the time period from 2008 to the end of 2014. An amazing number, 78% of those are in Central and South America, with Brazil at 51% and Mexico at 14%. And you can see the other parts of the world, the numbers that are there. But again, as Daniel said, many of those numbers are underreported. And we want to take some time for you to begin to chat in some names, if you have some names you want to remember, not just from this year, and not just those who've died, but those who've been impacted by violence and discrimination for being transgender. And there's lots of ways to get involved. You can get involved by attending a full event. There's a list at transgenderdor.org. There are some blog posts that are out there. The GLAD page has got quite a few individuals who have done some blogging and talking about their lives and the experience and some of the news coverages that are out there. And there's other resources that you can go to. There's some media kits from GLAD that you can use as a reference. There's a study called Double Victimized. And then GLAD has an interactive transforming images timeline that you can begin. But do think about this week as Transgender Awareness Week, the 14th through the 20th, and think about what you can do tomorrow, for the 20th as we move forward to remember and keep this in mind. And I see some names are coming in. Daniel, I'll turn it back over to you for this part.
Thank you, Pat. And as we mentioned, if you have anyone that you would like to remember at this moment, we're happy to read out those names, so go ahead and chat those into us. We have a few that have come up already, and I'll mention those here. The first is Niza Morris from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Phil is remembering Niza. And next we have Sage Smith from Charlottesville, Virginia, who disappeared 3 years ago this month. Emily is remembering Layla Elkhorn, and Megan is remembering Latita King from California. Robin is remembering David Borst, and Stephen is remembering Gwen Aruru. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Again, Pat has referenced the resources, and we discussed many different topics in terms of, I have one more name that came in, Diane Sezethom from Argentina. Thank you so much for that. And we talk about issues of violence and murder within the transgender community. But what we also know is that there are alarming rates of discrimination within the workplace. Transgender individuals have double the rate of unemployment. And when we talk about trans people of color, that can be up to 4 times the national unemployment rate. 90% of transgender individuals have reported being harassed, mistreated, or discriminated on the job. And 47% have had or experienced adverse job outcomes, such as being fired, not hired, or denied promotion because of being transgender or gender nonconforming. 26% of individuals have reported that they've lost their job due to be transgender or gender nonconforming. And 78% who have transitioned from one gender to the other reported that they felt more comfortable at work and their job performance improved despite high levels of mistreatment. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jenna Cook, who will begin to talk us through our workplace gender identity and transition guidelines. Jenna?
Thank you, Daniel. And definitely picking up just on that previous slide, you saw a lot of statistics as to how you've had a lot of unfavorable outcomes regarding transgender individuals within the workplace. And that is in part why the Transgender Advisory Committee developed these guidelines. We've had a lot of requests from our Fortune 1000 companies asking us, how can we help the transgender and gender diverse individuals within our company. Gotten those requests, from those companies, but also online. People want to be their authentic selves at work. It's very important. So much of their lives are spent at work. And it's been about a year and a half or so that the TAC, the Transgender Advisory Committee, has been working on these guidelines, and that we'll explain a little bit more about the TAC at the end. But it is probably one of the largest group of trans-identified individuals with just an immense amount of knowledge. And we've tapped into that knowledge, and we've developed the Workplace Gender Identity and Transition Guidelines, and it's probably no chance that guidelines is highlighted in red here. And it is just that. It is a document that will provide guidelines, a framework for the various constituents within the workplace. And we'll get to who those are in just a second. But mainly for the transitioning employee. Now, a quote here by Deborah DeHaas: "The talent pool is much more diverse today than it has been in the past. There are many more underrepresented minorities that are in the workplace, and they are a little bit more savvy than perhaps times and days past. They're looking for leaders that embody the core values that they have. And if prospective employees don't see that, or even if employees don't see that and continue to see that in the leadership of those companies, then you may not actually be hiring the right people or be retaining those right people. So a company needs to be, really thinking forward today if they want to specifically keep and attract the top talent, needed to create the type of company that is going to make it in today's workplace. Okay. So 21st century workplace in a corporate America, very positive trends are happening. Okay, we're broadening the definitions of diversity and inclusion. It's not like it was in the past where, race, gender, creed, those attributes were, really what was considered diversity in the workplace. It's now gender identity, gender expression. And with that, more companies are recognizing the value of what individuals are bringing to the company. There's a lot more individuality that is being brought to the company by prospective employees. And it's extremely important that the enterprise itself creates and maintains an environment that contributes to the success of the company. We saw in that slide that 78% of individuals, if they can bring their whole self, whole positive energy to work, that they're going to be a lot more productive. I think it was Tim Cook who said, inclusion inspires innovation. That's extremely true. If you don't bring, your top game to work every day, the company may survive, but it will not thrive. And that's extremely important in today's global environment. So the challenge, how to really best do that. Yes, it unfortunately has been some slow incremental steps on the transgender just doorstep, if you will, on adopting policies and procedures. There hasn't been any, one document that is truly defined, the type of support that people can find and embodies those core values of the company. But when you as a transgender employee, if you've decided to bring your full and authentic self to work, how can I do that? What's the best way for me to do that? And employees, they don't want to be disruptive in the workplace, and management doesn't want disruptive employees in the workplace. So how can I bring, my A game to work, even though I may be transitioning? That's where the Transgender Advisory Committee for Out and Equal, we have developed a set of comprehensive guidelines, a framework for the workplace transition process. And it is a process. It's not something that you're going to think you're going to start on Monday and be done on Friday. It does take a fairly long period of time, but with each employee, that time is going to be different. And each transition is going to be different. And the guidelines are conceptual enough such that they will provide that framework for the transitioning employee. So they will work with the transitioning employee, coworkers, and management, all those partners that have a substantial stake within the overall process. And in developing that process, of which we'll go into a little bit further with Lori and Deb, the process can be made to integrate the core values of the company. And those values are going to be echoed in the values of the individuals within the company, values that contain respect and the dignity that is needed within the workplace. Okay, so who are the guidelines for? For human resources. Now that could be the first place where a transitioning employee may go. They may come out to their immediate HR partner. Or if the company is large enough, if they have an employee resource group, they may come out to a coworker or somebody who is part of the LGBTQ ERG. They want to come out to some place where they feel that they're going to be, welcomed. They're not going to be chastised and such. So with guidelines in place, or if there's knowledge of the guidelines or where to go as a resource to have guidelines or develop guidelines, then someone from Human Resources can immediately assist the transitioning employee who has come to them and says, I need your help. I want to transition. I want to transition on the job. Also for D&I professionals who want to help develop those internal policies to help create a very good and inclusive atmosphere within the company. Also for legal counsel, as indicated, they provide a framework for the employee to move through that process within the company and continually to aid and add to the company. And obviously for the transitioning and gender diverse employee to help them aid in their overall transition process, and also to create and educate during that process. And also to senior management to help themselves understand the overall process, but also help ensure that the process occurs within the company and goes as smoothly as possible. There, I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. And as you've heard, you can see clearly that this is it's a team effort. It is involving not only individuals who are in the process of transitioning, but those surrounding the person at work. And all of this starts with a culture of inclusion within the company. You know, do your company's policies and procedures support individuals who are either contemplating transitioning or already have? And with core policies, you know, the EEO policies, your non-discrimination policies, all of these things are really a foundation for making sure that the culture of when the person comes out and transition is, and I hear this word a lot because the work that I do in consulting with companies is it a safe place? Does it feel safe for me to come out now? And very often companies will make reference to HRC's Corporate Equality Index. They will look at how does my company score on that? And is it a safe place? Is it an inclusive place? And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about what this means, but we have a poll that we would like to take. So Daniel, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Lori. Yes, so our first poll is, does your company have gender identity within their EEO policy? Yes, no, but adding it soon, no, or not applicable. So go ahead and put in your answers to that and hit submit, and then we'll be able to see our results. Okay, so the overwhelming majority are saying yes, which is absolutely fantastic to hear. Great, 92% have reported that yes, their company does include gender identity within their EEO policy. Thank you so much for that. And now I turn it back to our presenters.
Okay, thank you. That is amazing. I am really amazed by that number. That is so encouraging that your companies are really seeing this as an important issue, as an inclusive issue. And as this slide here kind of focuses on, does the organization realize that this decision is really a very personal decision? And if you think about, you may have colleagues that have come out as, are identified as gay or lesbian, and the process, the change when they've come out is, it can be challenging, but is nothing like a person who is coming out as a transgender identified or gender non-conforming individual. It is and can be a very personal decision. And the feedback that I hear from individuals who are transitioning is, I want to live my authentic life. I want to do the work, but I don't really want people asking me very personal, intimate questions like, have you had surgery, or what kind of surgeries have you had? And individuals have said to me, that just feels just so uncomfortable. And is there a way that HR or diversity inclusion, how can we make sure that people are trained and educated on the sensitivity of when someone comes out? And so both within the guidelines as well as the training that can take place when a person comes out is that sensitivity part that, these issues are something that a person may or may not want other people to know about at work. And so the sensitivity for both managers and the HR, diversity and inclusion individuals and departments to make sure that this is something that is, in fact, is a safe place for individuals when they come out. As we move on to the next slide, we look at here and seeing that what role does, as Jenna mentioned briefly about the role of management, HR, and D&I, that this privacy issue is very important to people. It's just something that has to be respected. And I had a colleague, someone say, if someone had another medical issue, would people be probing them? Would people be wanting to know what specifically were they going through, what treatments or whatever? And so it has to be something that is respected, for the individual. And in the process of someone coming out, we talk about how someone can, how they come out, how they, do they come out just right to their immediate manager and hope that everything goes well, knowing that there could be possible consequences, possible risks. And in the guidelines, as you will view them, either in your download or if you got a copy of the book at the Out and Equal Summit, we feel as an advisory committee, as well as the whole leadership of Out and Equal, feel that this that really a plan needs to be put in place. There needs to be a whole set of criteria that, in looking at when this person comes to HR, to their manager, that it be kept confidential until the person's ready to come out. But putting together a team of individuals who can assist. And, I often recommend that before anything is announced, that there be if you think about a mini strategic plan that includes communication, includes training, it includes a very specific timeline as to when all this is going to happen. And so that this plan has to be or should be in place before someone actually comes out. And all these pieces are included. And as you will read through the guidelines, you'll see that there are a whole complex set of criterion, that we suggest and look at. And but the outcome of this is really twofold. First, it is that you have a productive employee continuing to do their job and not being threatened or feel threatened that they're going to lose their job, and that there is minimal disruption in the workplace. I think most managers will tell, or will agree that, this is important, that a person is able to live their life authentically, but we want to make sure that they can, get back to work and achieve their goals and achieve the things that they are doing at work. So really doing this transition has a whole complex set of guidelines to make sure that when a person comes out, it's done well. And then talking about, the company's culture and looking at how do we deal with things like, the either the dress policies, when if the person has customer or vendor contact, how important that is that there be that there be a transition to these individuals as well. Part of that plan should include when and how the person will begin interacting with customers, in their new identity. So the plans, not only are they part of the announcement and the training, but that communication strategy. All of these things are really important to make sure that it isn't uncomfortable either for the individual or for management. So all of this is part of the overall plan. And in looking at this issue of restrooms, this is an issue, as I can sure that you can imagine, always comes up. The restroom, when I start talking with leaders of a department, it's how we're going to do this. How are we going to make sure that the person is able to use the appropriate restrooms, and that there is been a communication about this, so that the person doesn't feel uncomfortable or doesn't feel that they're being threatened. And so this needs to be talked about prior to, when the announcement of a person coming out and transitioning, how are we going to deal with this? And different companies will, do it differently, but the end result is that the person feels safe in their appropriate restroom. And to the next slide. Here's, as we've talked about the roles of not only the person who's transitioning, but what role does management play? What role does the individual's supervisor play? So these issues, have to be talked about as well as part of the overall plan. And often where potential outside consultant can help in this. I know that Pat Bailey and Daniel are doing this type of training. This is a type of training that several of us, as part of the Transgender Advisory Committee, we as independent consultants also do this type of this service to make sure that when a person's coming out, that there does include these things, that part of the whole process includes a very clear communication plan and ensuring that it's done well. Debbie, as the next presenter, I know that you as an owner of a company, you too have some thoughts about playing a role in this. Would you mind sharing that?
Yes, absolutely. We all know as leaders within our industries and within the most important thing is being able to engage the employees into the mission of the and the way to do that is to have the senior leadership of the organization to eliminate organizational fear. We are always talking about, driving, at least in modern days for competitive reasons, we want to have employees who are innovative and have the spirit. And the only way to be able to do that is to allow them to feel safe in the workplace. And we're also looking at we are coming out of a bad economic situation, but moving into the future, we have the baby boomers who are going to be leaving the industry we're in, and we're going to need to be an employer of choice, and we're going to be able to attract the best talents to be able to be the most successful. And if we as leaders aren't representing to all of the employees and to prospective employees that we're a very safe and inclusive workplace, and I use the word inclusive because diversity is one thing, but inclusion is the word that we always want to sort of concentrate, and that the inclusion and the culture of inclusion comes from what the senior leadership, all the way up to the CEO of the corporation, and I would even say from comments from the board members, so that everyone knows publicly what the organization thinks and feels. And that just from one standpoint comes from the policies that are written and from the ability for your employees to find the policies and to find the information when they look at the documentation. And like in new employee orientation, saying, hey, you're a new employee here, this is our culture, and our culture includes. So from a management standpoint, the key role is to set the culture of the organization so that it can meet the needs of the organization. So going into next slide. Come on. Good. So health insurance is one of the big conversations that have always gone around the transgender community. In the past, it was always a standard. It was pretty much a sheet that every insurance company pulled out and stapled onto the back of your insurance policies that said, we exclude the following. And it always included something around gender identity disorder. There's some old terms that were used that I'm not even going to mention anymore. But almost every one of the insurance companies, if you really go back and you look at it, they all have policies that have already been written that are in alignment with, WPATH and with other accepted procedures on how to deal with health insurance issues around the transgender community. Remember is that what we're looking at is not just the employees, but any children of employees, because I know that there are a lot of children nowadays that are really self-identifying at an earlier age because of the knowledge and the education that we have in the world and within our healthcare community. So it's important that you look at your health insurance programs, because having gender identity and gender expression in your policies, of inclusion policies, but not having the health care to be able to support the employees will then just sort of create a conflict and could cause a little bit of issues within your organization. So insurance is one of those questions. And especially, you don't need to have every single insurance plan to have the coverage, but you need to make sure that one of your insurance plans has the coverage and that it's easily identified for the employees. So annually, this is the time of year when everyone's picking their health insurance for next year, are easy enough to be able to identify and know which health insurance program that they want to get into. Now, I know the next slide has a poll. So, Daniel, are you going to bring the poll up?
Yes, so on the issue of health insurance, our next poll is, does your company offer fully inclusive health benefit coverage for transgender employees? And the choices are yes, fully inclusive, no, not fully inclusive, no, but considering it, no, and not considering it, I don't know, or not applicable. So go ahead and put in your answer to that and hit submit. Okay, and we're seeing an overwhelming majority, 55%, saying yes, fully inclusive. So that's absolutely wonderful to hear. We have about 10 to 11% of not fully inclusive. Some are considering, some no and not considering, unfortunately, and then about 22 that are not quite sure. So thank you for your answers with that.
So, in summary, the guideline that we've done to be able to support transgender and gender diverse employees is about finding the right way of being able to have the transition in the workplace without having fear on both sides of the relationship, and to be able to have it so that your employees can be themselves and can come to work and have the innovative spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit that we require to be successful as an organization. Just one note on healthcare. I know that I think a few days ago, the Department of Justice just wrote a letter of support to a case that's ongoing, where they're saying that they believe that the exclusion of gender identity health care from the Americans with Disability Act is actually an unconstitutional. So, and I know that a lot of commonwealths and states and areas are now pushing forward on laws of saying that excluding health care for transgender employees could be against their policies or their laws that they're putting forth. A little background information on health. So, document is all about finding a well-developed transition program so that the employee can be successful, that the company can be successful, that the other employees and coworkers can be successful, and it's all about sort of identifying before the things that need to get done, the types of policies and procedures in place, and the ways of being able to move forward. And it should all be, like Lori said, it's a very personal thing, so it needs to be something that's done together with the transitioning employee, and as something is done in a conversation. None of the policies that we have here are all about sort of trying to stop the employee from transitioning, but finding a way of being able to make it a successful transition for all of the stakeholders. We also recognize is that as an organization, that this is a there we go. We know that going forward is that this is a document that will require continuing input. As people go through transitions and new best practices are identified, we're always looking at trying to get information. So what we have is that with the Transgender Advisory Group, we're developing implementation and support programs for organizations, and we're also looking at trying to get information through the website for us to be able to bring that in to our work, but also so that we can take it out to anyone who doesn't have people who need more support within it. And I know that with the Out and Equal webpage, you'll be able to find resources on there and contact information for the support programs that we're having to put together to support companies as they implement their transition programs. Like I said, this is a living document, so we're always looking for feedback. The feedback can come through the Out and Equal organization, or if you know anyone or connected to any of the members of the Transgender Advisory Committee, and we're definitely looking at getting feedback through that operations. And also, if there's anyone that's on the call who's interested in getting involved with the Transgender Advisory Committee, then you can contact Out and Equal to be able to say that you're interested in getting involved. So this is the current members of the Transgender Advisory Committee, the individuals who help to work on the documentation. Like we said earlier, we have representatives from many different areas, people in frontline large corporations, small corporations, consultants, and as Jenna said, a great wealth of knowledge and experience with transgender. So the guideline, if you don't have a copy and you want to get one, then you can go to this link, or you can go to the Out and Equal webpage, and you can download a full version of the in a PDF form.
Okay, and Deborah, your audio seems to be cutting in and out just a little bit, so I'll pick up where you left off. And yes, we do have the guidelines available on our website by going to www.outandequal.org. If you click on University and Toolkits, you will find both the full edition of the guidelines as well as the executive summary. And we have many more resources there for you as well. I also included the link within the chat box, and we will also send that as a follow-up with the recording of today's session. So please take some time to review those, and thank you to everybody on the Transgender Advisory Committee for all of your hard work and efforts for this invaluable resource. We want to remind all of you that Out and Equal is here as a resource for you. We do this through classroom training and our online Out and Equal University. So archive town calls like our time here together today, as well as live webinar sessions. So please reach out to either Pat Bailey or myself if you would like more information. We're happy to help you continue to move the ball forward. And also the people on this call are also doing great training work in that space. So please feel free to reach out to us. With that, I know that we have many questions that are coming in, so we're going to open it up for questions and comments. And I'll just begin by saying that we did miss one name during the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and that was messaged in by Chanel in Atlanta, who is remembering Letitia Hall, who passed away just yesterday on November 18th. So thank you for that. So the first question that came in is, regarding the high risk of attempted suicide within the transgender population, I volunteer with the Trevor Project, and we work with people aged 13 to 24. I think this is more of a resource than a question. For anyone who knows trans youth who may be contemplating suicide, they should go to thetrevorproject.org, who can help them out with that. So thank you for that. The next question is from Don Hopings, and he's asking, without hard data, I've noticed more transgender folks who have transitioned move to separate themselves from the community. The thought that is remaining attached to the community will work against them as being seen from their correct gender. And his question is this really happening, or is this just an aberration due to his limited sampling? And I'll open that up to the panel.
Boy, could you go ahead? I wasn't really clear on the question or the statement.
Well, I was going to say, I think I may have attempted to answer that question a little bit, and it's just my opinion. But Lori, I mean, and Deb would definitely like your viewpoints too. I mean, when a lot of people transition, or after a lot of people they complete their their transition, they don't stay in the limelight of their transition. They don't become activists. They just want to be. That's a really big part of what being trans is about. Is that you want to strive for your true, authentic base identity, and once you get there, you just want to live your life. So a lot of people don't continue to associate with the trans community.
Right. And I would agree with Janet. Go ahead, Lori.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I've even heard comments from individuals say, I am a transgender woman who happens to be a professional. I am not a professional trans person. And to both, I think both feedback that, some individuals, once you achieve a sense of peace, you achieve a sense of alignment, and I think that's an important word, is, spiritually, psychologically, physiologically, when you feel aligned, there's no more need to, in some people, to have to go out and become an advocate. And but there still are many advocates, but clearly that is, I've seen that as well. Debbie?
Right. I would say it's that there are many people, and I know some people who are saying, I was a transgender person, but now that I've completed my transition, I'm not, because I'm now the gender who I always was. And I think it's just like Jenna had said, in the general population, how many people are actually out there leading and who are activists or involved in activities. It's just the same as with people within the transgender community. Once they've finished the transition dealing with the issues that they have to deal with, there's really no desire on their standpoint to be. I do say, though, is that there are a lot of transgender activities that happen sort of in the background, that transgender people all get together and support each other sort of as a network outside of, and it's not very public sometimes.
And this is Lori, and I would add also that in that support, very often the LGBTQ ERG or BRG or affinity group can play a significant role in ensuring that, especially one of the first individuals who comes out within an organization. There is a lot of anxiety, and so having a support network around them can be very helpful. And frankly, what I have seen as a trend is when that first pioneer, that first individual comes out and people hear about it, very often within a period not too distant future, there tends to be another individual may come out, just like there have in the past with gay and lesbian individuals. More people who, once they feel that it is safe, may also choose to, to come out in the workplace.
Great, thank you for that. I'm going to couple these next two questions together. And the first one is asking if companies need to comply with HIPAA privacy standards when an employee transitions, and then along with that, what health insurers can do to better communicate transgender health benefits to their members.
So
Anyone want to?
Go
ahead.
So I can go first. Anything that deals with a person's health or medical issues is covered by HIPAA, and since many transitioning people have health care that they have and health procedures, then I would address everything that you talk about as in very, very high confidentiality. Whether it is or isn't covered by HIPAA, you should, as a company, deal with it as being extremely personal information. And I would go from there, and that's the safest standpoint. As in, from an insurance company standpoint, how do you communicate? What you want to do is to make sure that it's specifically somewhere within your document in the introduction or early on into the presentations about your healthcare program to say, oh, and we cover transgender healthcare, and these are the programs that we follow, like WPATH. And if you have any questions, possibly having a special email address where people can send questions to, and then making sure that your representatives, when the person gets a call, when your organization gets a call, are well trained and well versed in their computer database, so when they pull it up, they can get the screen that says everything they need to know. Lori, did you want to go?
Yeah, I was just going to add very briefly, very often HR tends to be the gatekeepers for individuals coming out. Someone will come to HR, and I think that's where, whether it's HIPAA or respecting privacy, really plays an important role here in not only listening, but also in coaching that until things are in place, that neither the supervisor nor the individual who's transitioning should be talking about this to their colleagues, to their, to other individuals, until a plan that is so important that a plan be put in place. And in particular, even about the issue we talked about the bathrooms. For some reason, the bathroom issue tends to become a much bigger issue, and tends to become, in some places, it tends to become a moral issue. And you have people saying some very negative, very derogatory things, about I'm not going to go to the restroom if this person is in there. And so it has to be handled from a privacy issue, and everything has to be in place before the announcement takes place. So to that, whether it's HIPAA or confidentiality and privacy, all of that is really important.
Yeah, and on that, Lori, Carly had weighed in, and she's saying that she works for a conservative, large insurance company, and their perspective from leadership and HR was she's going to live her life as a female, and this is the restroom that she will use. And if anyone were to have issues with that, then they should use a different restroom. So just sort of coupling with that.
Great response.
Great. So the next question is, we have a few people that are asking if the panel has any opinions or clarification on the Section 1557 of the ACA.
Well, I do know somebody had indicated there that it's just been out of the review period. I don't know if it's been a positive review or not. I'm going to assume that it is going to be a positive review, and that denying or not having or not offering transgender benefits within a health plan will, I guess, effectively be prohibited. And as such, that being the case, if one insurer offers a health plan with transgender benefits, then all of their plans will have to offer transgender benefits. They won't be able to pick and choose as to which plans will offer benefits.
Jenna, this is Pat. I know we just got an update that review actually closed on November 9th. So now it's kind of a wait and see to see what comments came in and what changes. Usually takes them a little while to get that out, but hopefully they got that message loud and clear.
Right.
Great, and we have several
really
individuals who are, sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is very encouraging. We have several individuals who are asking specifically how they can get involved with the Transgender Advisory Committee.
And this is Pat, and I just chatted out Deborah's email address to do that, to get in touch with them, and we'll have those names. So if you're interested in getting involved, just send me a chat message, and we'll make sure that the TAC gets that list.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
and there are so many more questions that are coming in, and we would like to be able to get to all of them. So I will go ahead and copy those and share those with the presenters. But I would like to keep those on time, and I'd like to give each of our panelists just a moment if they'd like to make some closing comments.
This is Lori. I would just like to reinforce that being able to live your authentic self, as someone who went through the process several years ago, it is such a wonderful place to be able to live your authentic self and live a passionate life. And we still have so many individuals out there, both whether they're working or in college or younger, who are truly struggling with gender identity, gender expression, and so to be sensitive to that, to ask questions, to be proactive, to be inclusive is really important. And but I am very optimistic that we are moving in the right direction. So thank you all for being here today.
Yes, absolutely. I just couldn't echo that enough about having the opportunity to, really be the person you want to be. And these guidelines, I wish we'd had them 4 or 5 years ago when I was transitioning at work, and that's one of the reasons why I got so heavily involved in them, is because transitioning employees, it's hard enough to keep, that secret, if you will, to yourself within the workplace. It's just, you lie to yourself, you lie to your friends, your colleagues, and it's like little black holes for the soul. It does no one any good, especially the company that you work for. And, these guidelines can serve as a platform that can help so many people. So, use them, take them back to your company, share them, make them as publicly known as possible.
Yes, and I would have to say is that I would have loved to have the guidelines too. But from the standpoint of being competitive in our individual business areas, if we want to be in the employer of choice and we want to have the best employees and we want to show to everyone who could be a prospective employee that we are an inclusive environment and that we are an environment encouraging innovation, then making sure that you have good transgender coverage and also support for all of the diversity within your organization is critical from a standpoint of being a successful and vibrant business.
Great. Thank you, Lori, Jenna, and Deborah, for your time today. Thank you for sharing your insight and all of your hard work and the work of the Transgender Advisory Committee on the workplace transition guidelines. What we hope is that when we can affect change in the workplace, it will lead to broader social change. And let's try to keep that to heart tomorrow on Transgender Day of Remembrance. Just a reminder that this session has been recorded, and we will be offering that out afterward in a follow-up email, and it will be archived on our website as well. There'll be a brief survey after the call, and we're interested in your feedback. I know there were many questions that we didn't get to, but we will be sharing those out and message those to you later. Our next town call will be on Thursday, December 17th at 12 p.m. Pacific, where we'll be discussing health issues in the workplace. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.